Thank you everyone for being over here. Truly, truly appreciate it. Let me introduce you to our guest today. Our guest today on Raw Live has been selected alongside names such as Oprah Winfrey, Denzel Washington, and J.K. Rowling to be the first inspirational Goalcast speaker of this decade with over 1.5 million views. With humble beginnings, he worked his way from the military, police, and bodyguard worlds across into strategic corporate roles before influencing people all over the world with his own content. He helps you make peace with the mirror, first raising your self-esteem and self-confidence, and then helps you map your VIP of health, of mental health, so that you remain mentally agile, resistant, or tough. Up to you, your choice. Then gives you access to the Lion Academy. If your people need inspiration, motivation, or transformation across corporate, military, or community demographics, there is no one else in the world that can do what our guest does in the way that he does it. We welcome the outstanding Dion Jensen to Raw Live, who does it the Pacific way. Thank you, Dion, for being here. Truly, truly appreciate it.
Oh, look, any time for you, and for anyone watching, this is someone I have a huge amount of respect for, and the reason why we're on this particular call is because both of us have been through our own mental health issues and have helped other people with it in our own sort of way. Thank you for the introduction. That's the commercial introduction. As I sit here in New Zealand, I cringe a little bit with that introduction, because down here in the South Pacific, you know, when you get those sort of accolades, which our teams work hard to achieve, obviously, culturally, it's you know, it rubs us the wrong way. We've got a tall poppy syndrome down here, big noting yourself. Australia and New Zealand, we don't like it, but the commercial credibility of what we're about to talk about, I understand why it's there. And culture is one of the main things I'm going to talk about here when we're talking about suicide and mental health, because culture is formed by shared opinions and shared value systems, right? And so what that says to me is, if something's not working for us, then we should all be able to come together as a community and look at those, challenge those, and ultimately, if we need to go where we want to go. So today's discussion is not a business talk. Today's discussion is not an inspirational, motivational, anything of that today. If you want to know how to use mental health for crisis leadership and in business and family and all the rest of it, you can go have a look at another one of my talks, how to lead during crisis and keep your mental health. Today is 100% for that individual that is sitting at home looking at four walls right now that's struggling. And the reason why we've had to do this today is we've had suicide attempts in Singapore and Malaysia, where I used to live, and obviously where Rohit and I met. Rohit's in Dubai, at 2 o'clock this morning to be on this call. And so it's necessitated us coming on and hitting suicide straight on. Suicide doesn't scare us. It's actually a positive when you understand what takes someone to that point. And I'm going to say right off the bat, if you're struggling at any point now, you should know your emergency numbers for where you are. But there's two types of people I want to talk to today. There are those that are struggling and want to know how to think, feel, and do something that's going to be better. And there are those of us that we're fine, we're doing really, really well. But we know people that are struggling. So I just want to talk to both of those people. So if you're struggling right now, it's okay. All right. So whatever you're feeling right now, absolutely natural to feel it. It's okay to be scared, okay to not know what to do, and it's okay to be at a point where you don't want to continue doing what you're doing. So that point's okay. Because on this talk, we're going to talk you through some options, some solution options. And I only talk about solutions. I'm not here to amplify any problems. I'm here to give solutions to problems and some things that people think are problems, in fact, they're not. So today's talk is just for you, whoever's watching this right now. If you're struggling, or you know someone that is. So that's the foundation of what this talk is. So help someone not jump off their balcony in KL.
Yeah. So let's get into this, deep dive into it straight away. Suicide, mental health. What's the difference? What's the difference?
Sure. Well, let's talk about the lanes. So let's talk about the term mental health.
Yes.
All right. It's actually all the good stuff, Rohit. That's why it's called health, right? It's mental health. It's our ability to deal with normal life stuff. Exactly the same as physical health. If you've got a good diet and you're physically fit, when you're challenged physically, you can respond to that and carry on with what you need to do. If you've got 5 bags of shopping and you're strong enough to lift it and carry it, then you're physically healthy to do what normal life stuff is, like shopping.
Yep.
Mental health is to be able to deal mentally with the pressures that you're going to deal with. Okay. And pressure and stress are the only 2 words I'm really going to talk about when we get into the solutions. Okay. So mental health is all the good stuff. How do you just handle normal life stuff? Okay. And I'm going to use 3 simple lanes for people so you can find where you fit. And if you don't, create your own. All right. Okay. Because you have this power. So first and foremost, for the mental health side, people fit somewhere in these 3 lanes in our experience. Firstly, there's the mentally tough. All right, you come from a background, an industry, a way of growing up where you're tough. And that is the end of a process where you're hardened because you've been in an environment where there's been a lot of pressure and a lot of stress to the point where you can handle it. You're tough. All right. Mental toughness is the end of a process. All right, involving pressure and stress. Over on the other lane is mentally agile or mentally adaptable. We can see things and you stay out of the way of them. All right. So you don't want to be tough. Not everyone wants to be tough. Not everyone wants to stay in a situation where they keep getting bombarded with things. They'd rather recognize and stay out of the way, right? Which makes sense. So mental toughness on this side, mental adaptability and agility on this side. And what sits in the middle is this big buzz term that everyone's using called mental resilience. Right? Okay. And I'm not diving in there, but I just put mental resilience in the middle where if you need to be tough, you can be tough. And if you need to be adaptable and agile, you can. And this is where we have a huge issue in Asia, because Asia is in one particular lane. All right. So when stuff comes, they're nowhere near the other lane. Because in Asian culture, it's the opposite. And so with all this pressure at the moment, it's creating a lot of stress, and that is manifesting in suicide and suicide attempts, and people using the term mental health to talk about negative stuff. Okay. Because people don't understand definition. So mental health is the good stuff. Your ability to deal with normal life stuff. Okay. All right. When it's outside of normal life stuff, and our background is trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder specifically, dealing with a traumatic situation where there hasn't been a process, it's just been bang, trauma, right? Yep. Now, if you were mentally tough before trauma came, if it affects you to a negative that you can no longer use that strength, you're going to look for an escape. Okay. So if we talk about suicide, for some people, suicide is an escape. So let's just put that over there. It's not everyone. So sometimes it's an escape to get away from something they don't like. Okay. And this is when people talk about there's so much pressure, I can't take it anymore. So they consider killing themselves. So suicide is killing yourself to get away from that. But a lot of the guys in my world, they see suicide as a solution, where they see me being dead is better than me being alive. And it's pure math. And so what I've found when I'm dealing with all of these different people around the world, like different cultures, different people, male, female, soldiers, nurses, school teachers, the garbage man, any human being, they've all sort of fit into these demographics, all right? So if you're watching this right now, you will know if you're someone that's used to dealing with tough stuff or not. You might be someone that thinks more than you feel and you can rationalize and logic, all that sort of side of things. But when the pressure gets too much, suicide is seen as an escape or a solution. And sometimes that escape can be a solution. Now, I'm not going to make this medical or complex. For human beings, if pressure gets too much or pain gets too much, we are hardwired to move away from it. Those of us that are trained to move towards it is because we went through a process of retraining our hardwiring to go towards it. So what we have now is we have a global source of pressure. All right. And that is global. And that pressure is squeezing a lot of people. And we know that what makes it worse for people is being isolated, feeling alone, losing hope, normally. And then if you add alcohol, drugs, domestic violence, and everything else, and fear, then you've got this emotional, energetic mix in this pressure cooker. Okay? And that's actually really good news as far as I'm concerned, because when you understand it and you see it from that point of view, when you understand how to relieve that pressure, and you take that pressure off,
Mm.
then you can have a conversation with someone in their language to alleviate those pieces inside that pressure cooker.
Okay.
In the military, we call it the shitstorm. Out here in the corporate world, they call it stress, depression, anxiety, all these other words. Okay. So to summarize, mental health's all the good stuff.
Yeah.
Right? 3 different lanes: mental toughness, mental agility or adaptability, or mental resilience. Suicide, for most of the people that we've dealt with, is an escape or a solution. This is the build-up of pressure. We'll talk some medical stuff later, but just for anyone watching this, it's okay to feel under pressure at the moment. There's a lot of pressure out there.
So you say, I mean, according to you, and you said this 2 years ago as well, and I know we've had this conversation face-to-face and on many other occasions as well, that this is a looming crisis. What makes you so, what's the word I'm looking for? What makes you, your belief so strong that this is a looming crisis?
Well, it's not looming anymore, it's here.
Well, yeah.
It was a looming mental health crisis when I was saying there's a mental health crisis coming to Asia 2 years ago. And how I knew that is 2 years ago, I went to Singapore as a regional operations manager for Asia Pacific. So I'm managing every Asian country. And when you're a specialist leader and manager and you're managing different cultures, your success, and for any clinicians that will watch this, there's one thing we all agree on no matter who we are when we help people, okay? The single most accurate factor to predict success in helping someone struggling is the relationship between the person struggling and the person helping them. That is key. That is a foundation, is relation. Life is built on relationships.
Yep.
So when I'm leading and managing, I form relationships with my staff. I protect them first. I identify their fears. I protect them from their fears, and then I train them to protect themselves from their fears. And then after that, I task them to do something in the organization, and they do it, and they're comfortable. That's what leadership and management is: managing people's fears, right? And then leading on a mission. So while I was doing that in Asia, I'm seeing all the cracks that I saw in the veteran community back here in New Zealand starting to show.
Okay.
I'm like, why aren't you talking about the pressures? Because I come from Johor Bahru every morning. I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to get across the causeway, to catch the red line MRT, to get into Raffles Place before 7, so I can have breakfast to get to work by 8, in case you need me for something I'm supposed to start at 9. And if I don't do that, then there's 16 million people that will take my job. So already you're sitting under the pressure of the environment. And then when those cracks start to show, the fear of losing face in Asia is terrifying. Because in the military, you say that your critical strength is your critical vulnerability, right? So the critical strength of Asia is family. Everything in Asia is predicated upon a family model. Singapore has the 9 dragon families that go generations. And you've got the class systems in all our other Asian countries, right? And so when those cracks in that start to appear, you can't be the firstborn son, generation number 4, in charge of the family business, that can't sleep at night because you're terrified of making a wrong decision. And it's better to fall off the balcony than fail in front of your family and bring shame. And so as I'm starting to manage these people and talking to all these different communities, and would be out eating at midnight and talking to all these different people, I went to a business function in Singapore, a networking function. And if you're not from Asia, you finish work and you network. And at the end of networking, you eat at about midnight, right? And then you just go back to your apartment to shower, sleep, get up and do it all over again. So I'm at a networking function. And I was invited there specifically by the organizer just to, inspire a few people. They're doing a training course. This guy's from New Zealand. He's a little bit different, a lot different. And so in amongst that conversation, when he's introducing me to people, it's like, oh, and he helps, veterans with suicide and post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
And then as soon as someone knows that about me, anyone that's struggling, you can just see it in their eyes, Rohit. I call it the flicker. You can talk to someone about it and there's a flicker. And it's like a flashing light for me. And I'm like, oh, that person's struggling with something, but you don't go over there and go, hey, what are you struggling with? You see it, you make note of it. And so the Singaporean girl came over to me, professional Singaporean woman, came over to me. She asked the question, how do you help people that are struggling in Singapore?
Okay.
And I was like, why did you specifically ask about Singapore? She goes, well, we're different than everyone else. We can't tell anyone if we're struggling. I was like, why is that? And the first thing she said, well, for starters, suicide is illegal in Singapore. So that was my first, or my second trigger. First trigger was I'm leading and managing a lot of people that are under mental health pressure. Can't talk about it. So, ooh. And then I'm meeting a lady at a networking function says it is illegal to attempt or commit suicide in Singapore. And there was this myth that even if you killed yourself in Singapore, they handcuffed the body. That was the myth in Singapore. So culturally, that was the agreed story on mental health challenges and mental illness. You were either crazy or you were weak and you weren't good enough for your family to do your job and honor the family name, which is bad enough in itself. But then to find out that suicide and attempted suicide was illegal, I'm thinking, hang on a second, I know the pressure that's coming. I mean, I'm managing every Asian country and all these other different places, American companies and UK companies. They're doing all this work and all this business in Asia. And I'm seeing this pressure starting to come on. And that's when I said, guys, if you don't understand this now, when this comes, you're going to fold because you're not ready to deal with it. And so while I'm talking to that young professional Singaporean woman, I said, well, how I help someone in Singapore is how I help anyone in the world. I just ask them what's going on. And then as soon as they speak, I created a vocabulary for 4 different characters that struggle. And then if you speak certain words to me, I know what character you are and I can speak your language back to you. So we're speaking the same language. Okay? So language is critical. And then I see the flicker again and she's looking at me and I'm just waiting. So I said, so what's going on? And she goes, can we talk outside? I said, sure. We go outside. And this is what she says to me, brother. She goes, I gave my word that I would come to this networking function tonight to my friend. So I'm just here to keep my word. And I'm going home and I'm going to swallow a whole lot of pills and I'm killing myself. So that was her last night, technically, on the planet, was to give her word, which gave me a huge indication in regards to what was important to her. And then she was going to go home and kill herself in Singapore. So I sat with her, spoke to her. We ended up sitting out on the steps in the middle of Raffles Place, you know, the middle of Raffles Place, where the steps go down to the MRT station. The MRT's closed. Just sat and spoke to her through the process until I could get to a point where I could actually get some help for her, because there's no one. You can't, well, you can, but she wasn't willing to tell family, to tell friends. She would rather have taken a whole lot of pills and not woken up than have to face what she was facing, because it was just too scary. It was just too much. And so again, it was a solution. It was just math to her. I do all this stuff, I just do this. But when I took all this stuff that she's scared of and I reframed it and we looked at it a different way, then all of a sudden she's like, whoa. It's like, hang on a second. I don't want to do this now, because this is, suicide is a full stop. End of your story, full stop, right? But if you can protect people from that which they fear and reframe it in such a way that they can see that they can get through it. And the easiest way is to say, hi, my name's Dion. I used to struggle with all this stuff as well. And I found out that this is actually not this, it's actually this. And so that's called holding space. So I just held space with her and I connected her to some professional help, because at the time there was no one in Asia that could have this conversation. In Singapore, there's amazing psychiatrists, psychologists, and counselors and people out there. But the gap from I'm struggling to talking to those people was too wide. So I had to sit in the middle. And this started happening quite a lot. And as soon as people figured out what I was doing and I started speaking and sharing my story, more and more people from Singapore and Malaysia were coming. When I got to Malaysia, it was violence towards women, because I started protectingwomen.global. And so it was a lot of, culturally, amongst a lot of Asian cultures, women are second-class citizens. So there's a lot of marital rape, marital beatings. There's a lot of armor beatings. A lot of Chinese were beating Malaysian armor. It was, if you're not in that environment, you don't hear about this stuff, right? And you can't speak out against it. And so that's when I started thinking, hang on a second, we've got to do something. And you saw the effect that had when I started speaking about the stuff in Singapore. Man, they did not want to hear it. So yeah, it was looming 2 years ago. It's here now, bro.
My question rises while you're talking about this is is this got to do with this thing about moving from that? So like you said, mental health is a good thing, but moving to that suicide part,
Yep.
is it got to do with the way we're living, that everything is focused towards having that materialistic, that money success?
Yeah, and that's the value system in Asia. The value system in Asia, we know what they are, bro, our three rice bowls, right? But we know the value is how much money have you got? And I was talking to someone who's dealing with someone at the moment who's got everything. He's got heaps of money. He's got a beautiful wife. Business is doing great. Got the cars, got the house, all the rest of it. And he wants to kill himself because he has no purpose in life. He's ticked all the boxes he was supposed to tick, but inside, as a human being, it's not what he wants to be. So before we lose people to think, oh my God, this is all really, really bad. How we're getting people through that is to talk about and understand from inside. So who are you? Who do you want to be? And where do you want to matter? And when you understood their value system and their language, it was about putting all those steps in place to say that there's all these other options to get to where you want to go before you even get anywhere near thinking about wanting to kill yourself. But because we haven't been allowed to talk about this in Asia, they think, I've got to be awesome. If not, this. It's like they're just working off two things. And so when we start talking to them, we create this space of all these other options. Say, hey, what you're going through right now, it's natural, it's normal. They're like, really? Yeah, you're not weaker than anyone else. You're not the weak link. You're not the you're not going to be the one known family for generations that's you're the one that failed. This is normal life stuff. Everyone in the world is under this amount of pressure. So how is that pressure manifesting in your life that's causing you to think, feel, or behave this way? When we start talking to this, then all of a sudden, this opens up and they go, oh, there's all these other options apart from this. But Asia was, because we're opening this discussion up now, I've been invited to speak on Singapore National Radio in 2 weeks. The first radio conversation on suicide since suicide was made not illegal, right? So as of 1st of January this year, only the 1st of January this year, it is not illegal to attempt suicide or commit suicide in Singapore. And for my tribe watching this, we cringe every time we hear commit suicide, because the term commit suicide is because it was illegal, you're committing an offense. So in my tribe, we say someone suicided. We didn't say commit suicide because it's an attachment that they did something wrong. Okay? I just want to clarify that to some of my people here. So here in New Zealand, so if I timeline this, so here in New Zealand, we have the highest youth suicide rate in the world.
Okay.
Like ridiculous. And that is because our value system has come to the point where if you don't play sport and you can't fight, you don't really matter. And then when COVID, and see, let me clarify this. COVID has done nothing, all right? COVID, the virus in itself, has done nothing. Our response to COVID is what's triggering all of this, all right? So that's why you're seeing all around the world, depending on your response to this crisis, is where things are spiking. We saw suicide spike. We saw domestic violence spike, because those that were doing the risk assessment on what to do for a biological threat are from the total opposite place of what are the threats to mental health, all right? Which you can get to a point. So in New Zealand, we had all these awareness campaigns. We've got a mental health champion in New Zealand, Mr. Mike King. He is our checks and balances, man. He's the guy that's like, hey, we've got these issues, right? And it's our job to plug solutions into that. So we've had the discussions, the mental health awareness for years. We still have the highest youth suicide rate. So talking about it's not the answer. Talking about it with all these different solution options is what changes things for people. But in Asia, we haven't got to the point where we're openly talking about it to say, hey, there's all these other options apart from the medical model. Because the moment you go and see someone professionally in Singapore, I don't care what anyone says, everybody knows.
I mean, you talk about Singapore specifically, but if you look at it even on a global basis, of what I've noticed is, if you talk about mental health, it's always taken into a negative context.
Correct.
And then if you hear about someone committing suicide or want to be committing suicide, it's considered as a loser, as someone who is given up and has no inner strength. They're not. So in a man's world, they would say they're not man enough. In a woman's world, they'll say she's not strong enough. So people are not willing to open up and talk about it. This is a day-to-day person on a regular basis. How do we deal with that? How do we get people to open up with this? Because it is a challenge, even just saying something about it.
Sure. So that's stigma, right? So one of the main obstacles to getting help is stigma. Is getting all these labels, like getting all this this crap stuck to you to say if you ask for help, you got all this stigma, right? Not man enough, weak, coward, betrayed your family, left your family, embarrassed your family. They attach all this negative stigma, all right? The first thing that protects from stigma is when someone has the courage to stand up and say, you know what? I'm 6'4", 115 kgs. I'm trained to kill people. I'm pretty tough. You know, you want to challenge me, I'm not man enough, that it's not going to work. And the people that I know that have killed themselves, the last friend of mine that hung himself, that killed himself, his nickname was Rambo. This dude is huge. He's about as manly as you can get. All right. So the first thing that happens when people find out that those tough guys struggle. And so when I started speaking, say, hey man, I'm a tough guy. I'm mentally tough, man. I can go to a place in my mind where nothing can hurt me. Yet I got to a point where I just had enough. Didn't make me weak, run out of juice. So when I talk about those 4 different characters, when it comes to suicide, those 4 characters see it for a different reason. And some people do get fatigued, mate. Some people are just sick of wearing this mask that is not them, staying in a marriage they don't want to be in, trying to every day look like they're okay when they're in pain. And it just gets too much and they get tired, fatigued, and they do want to go to sleep and not wake. But then when you attach that and you go back and tell me about this mask you're wearing, and you examine this and you find out who they really want to be and help them become that person, it's a flip and away they go. And so the first thing to get over stigma is for people to go, yep, I've been there. Very powerful words. Dion, how do you know this? I've been there. Dion, how do you know how to say these things? I've been there. No, are you thinking this? Are you feeling this? Are you doing this? And they're like, oh my God, how would you know that? I've been there. So when you find out that you're not the only one that's going through this, and this is the big favor that the COVID response has done for us, right? And I'm reframing a lot of things. Now that everyone feels the same pressures, do I still have a job? Can I feed my family? Is this virus going to kill me? Is this because there's pressure, right? So no one can argue that you're not feeling pressure of some description. So that's helping us with stigma. Hey, all these guys you thought were crazy, weak and cowards and all the rest of it, well, let's just prove that they're not crazy because you're feeling the same pressure, right? So that's the favor. So stigma is the first obstacle. 2 things that protect from stigma, obviously someone coming out and saying, hey man, I've been through this as well and this is how I got through it. Second one is confidentiality. No one's going to say anything if they think it's going to get repeated. So confidentiality is key. Here in New Zealand and Australia, down this side, if people are struggling, I recommend they go and see their doctor, get to see a counselor or psychologist, and have everything recorded in their medical files, which is held under confidentiality. So that's cool about the medical model. And while we're talking about the medical model, actually, you want to say anything about that, Rohit?
No, continue, please.
Okay. So now's a really good time to talk about the sort of the 3 main models that we have in helping people with mental health challenges. So firstly, let's just look at a human being first. All right. Now we're a soul wrapped in this meat suit, right?
If you believe in a soul, that's the thing. Some people just don't believe.
Okay, so we're either a soul and a spirit wrapped in a meat suit, or we are an electrical source of energy wrapped in a meat suit.
Whichever you like.
Whichever you like, which is run by either a laptop, a conscious mind, a steering wheel, whatever you want to call it. All right. So as human beings, we are people. We have our own who we are. You're Rohit, I'm Dion.
Yep.
As physical bodies, we have heads, hearts, and bodies, right? So we have thoughts, feelings, and behavior. We're a biological being.
Yep.
We're a chemical being.
Yep.
We're an electrical being. So physically and physiologically, we're another being as well. And that's the medical model. But over here in the healer's model is the other part of ourself. We're cultural.
Yes.
We're spiritual.
Yep.
We're energetic. Right? And so the three areas where I've been helping people is firstly through lived experience solutions. I went through my stuff as Dion. I got through my stuff by doing what Dion did. I wrote a book, what I did. I wrote another book, what I did. And this is my lived experience solution. If you resonate with my story, my solution will help you because it's written in your language. The good news about PTSD, written in military language, helps military people because it's their language. The VIP of mental health helps any human being that wants to understand it from that model, right? Lived experience. Then we go into the medical model, which comes from the World Health Organization's definition of mental illness.
Yes.
It's the medical model, right? That definition of mental illness is struggling with thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that you can't control for more than 2 weeks. Now, whether you agree with that or disagree with that, that then kicks off everything else from doctors and GPs to counselors and psychologists. So we have this medical model. When you're diagnosed through the medical model, it activates money and help within that medical model, right? But in that medical model, you know, we're talking psychology, traumatic brain injury, and alcohol and drugs. Now we're upsetting the chemical balance of our body, which upsets the kid. So now we're talking about this biological animal that we are in regards to what's going on in this medical model. But in that medical model, there's 2 things that are missing from that model is culture and spirit and energy. 3 things: culture, cultural, spiritual, and energetic. All right. So in lived experience, I could say I'm getting angry. And in my lived experience model, I became a werewolf. I couldn't control my anger. Right. That's my words, my terminology. In the medical model, that means because of what I went through was traumatic. That is called hyperarousal. Therefore, Dion, you have a condition called post-traumatic stress disorder. And our options to help you are limited by what the medical model says I can do. Right? Helps a lot of people. Some people it doesn't help. But then over on the healing side, on the cultural side, you can say, you know, Dion, you are, you know, you're disconnected from your Pacific Island identity of yourself, where this is in you to be a warrior. Spiritually, I have a relationship with Jesus. So on the spiritual side, that has a lot of power for me.
Yes.
But Jesus is not in the medical model, or Muhammad or Buddha or anyone else, right? Which is a huge part of a cultural value system that we're all brought up with. And then energetically, you know, an Asia would say, Dion, you got too much fire element and too much air. So air and fire is just going to create this anyway. So how do we then deal with fire and air from an energetic point of view? We control that with our food and everything else. So we go see the old man in the story, looks at your eyeballs and gives you some funky tasting herbs, right? And so those 3 lanes, somewhere in those 3 lanes, someone's going to resonate with. If there's no stigma to go down and discuss this, then you've got those options. And then you're going to hit the second objection or obstruction, which is confidentiality. When it's trust in relationships, that's taken care of. When it's legal confidentiality, that's taken care of. And then finally, the last bit that you need is the results. So we do all this talky stuff about all the bad stuff and all these options. No one's talking about the positive results. Lisa Westgate, she's a PTSD coach from Australia. I used to have PTSD, now I don't because I did this. So if you got PTSD and you don't want it, do that.
Okay.
Lived experience solution. And now those of us that have lived experience solutions have clinical endorsements because now they can explain it in their language. So when I went through my journey, I came up with my own lived experience solution. Then I worked with the medical model to say, hey, why does this work? And then when we started speaking the same language, I can speak their language, they can speak mine. They were like, hey, we're talking about the same stuff, just in different language. But you've got stuff over here that you can help me with. One of my people has a traumatic brain injury. They got blown up. So they've got damage to their brain, the actual part of their brain, which is upsetting their chemical balance. So we may need pharmaceutical drugs to help with the chemical imbalance. That's why we have a medical model.
Yeah.
Over here in the healers model, they might understand that as something else and still be able to help. So we stop seeing this as a competition. We stop seeing this as the medical model is wrong, it's all pharmaceutical and drugs. We stop seeing the healer's model is all witchcraft and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And we'll stop seeing people like myself saying, hey, I've got a solution that works for me, and people going, that doesn't work because it's not the medical model or this. So now we're at a place where we have a whole lot of us with lived experience solutions.
Yes.
That's clinically endorsed by the medical side. Those of us with lived experience trust a lot of the professionals that we have because we have a relationship with them. We've got access to their solutions, and now we're all linking across to all of our healers like Yana Fry and Delphine Panya and Johnson Chong. And so when I was going through that journey, I've got 3 counselors. I've got 2 psychologists that I regularly touch base with because I want to understand their solution and their language and their skills. It gives me more options. I can sit there and pray and do my own thing. I can go to Johnson and meditate and do yoga. So I've been able to form this community in these 3 lanes so that if anyone comes to me that is struggling or comes to my team or my network, Dion, I'm struggling with this. What happened? What's going on? They speak a language. I learn the vocabulary. I know the character. I know what they're dealing with. And I know how I can connect them. And all of these connections, I've grabbed people and taken them straight to a psychologist. I've grabbed people and taken them straight to a yoga instructor and said, mate, this dude's got a flipping physical block in this part of his body. I don't know why. Send him to Johnson. Johnson's like, that's old anger and resentment from something that happened in his relationship. There's no way a psych's going to figure that out in the time that Johnson can do it because he's energetic, right? So really, we're really getting to this point where, we talked about it takes a village to raise a child. We lost the village, brother. But everyone's so segregated. But now in the mental health space, all of these people from different modalities, lived experience, the medical model, the healing model, we're all sitting around the same table now. Why? Because we are seeing so many people under this pressure because they think it's all bad. It's normal. And there's multiple solutions. If we can, 1, openly talk about it in safety and confidentiality. 2, have access and connect to people that have been where they are and have made it out the other side. That's key, bro. Because there's a lot of people saying, no, I suffered too, and I suffered too, and it's because of this, and it's because of that. Man, I don't care unless I want to get out the other side. So now we're in this beautiful space. The looming mental health crisis is here for Asia. And we had a suicide attempt 2 days ago in Malaysia. It might have even been yesterday. Someone fined 5,000 ringgit for trying to jump off the building. And then in the Asian culture, our young people haven't been taught filters and boundaries because there is no filter on this thing, right? So, man, I deal with suicidal Asian people. So what's happened? This person said that. It's like, and then what? That's it. This person said, I'm ugly, so I'm going to kill myself. I was like, where's everything in between? This is my mind, right? I'm not devaluing it by speaking to them this way. I'm just like, someone's just said one thing and you're ready to go and kill yourself. Because if you keep talking about a problem without providing a solution, you are validating it. And then so we were trying to destroy the stigma of asking for help. We talked about it so much without solutions, we destroyed the stigma of killing yourself. So now I would challenge you from the start of this conversation, if someone killed themselves now in your network that you know, people wouldn't say bad things about them. They'd say, lots of people are doing it. It's normal to kill yourself. There's just a lot of pressure. So we didn't destroy the stigma of asking for help. We destroyed the stigma of killing yourself. And that's why, in my personal opinion, that suicide is skyrocketing. We've made it an acceptable solution where it's not. Killing yourself is not a solution, it's a full stop. And if you are at the point where you are seriously considering killing yourself, you are in that space right now, just have this amazing potential to have everything you want in your life if you would understand this from another side. And the amount of people I've spoken to that have come back and said, geez, bro, I was at peace with killing myself. And after understanding how you shaped this, like, I'm so grateful that I didn't, because now I get to do all this awesome stuff. So if you're telling me you're in so much pain because of something that's happened, it's because you got a huge heart. And if you can get out there and share that huge heart with the world, man, you're going to get everything that you're looking for. And if you're wanting to kill yourself because someone did this, it's because you have this amazing, amazing sense of righteousness and justice, and you feel absolutely betrayed. Get out there and fight for that. And then no matter how bad it is that comes to us, it's because the more energy that's attached to this, that energy, we know if you can transmute that and reframe and get people back to where they want to go. And that's the doorway, brother, between lived experience, the medical model, and the energetic emotions. You're Mr. Compassion. Why? Because it affects an emotion. What's emotion? It's energy and motion.
Yep.
And so people are going to come to you expressed in emotion. Fear and pressure and everything else is just energy. It's just emotion. And when you can identify why the emotion is negative, man, I'm preaching to the choir. You got a book on this, brother. Be kind to yourself.
My question arises is, you're talking about this. One of the things which I've noticed, and which there's data out there, is about teenagers, actually, not even teenagers, kids as old as 6 attempting to commit suicide. And I was talking to my niece, so she's helping teenager girls who are concerned about their looks. So she's creating a product, a cleanser for them to clean, basically for the face. And this is specifically for teenagers. And she's so concerned about this is because she has seen photographs of seen pictures of kids, or even with her circle, where they cover themselves in makeup because this is what social media says, or what the media says, or what the movie says, or someone you aspire to be, they say it. And it gets to a point where they can no longer bear themselves. They want to commit suicide, or there's someone in their network who says you're ugly, and they commit suicide.
Yes.
So it's not a matter of, so what I'm seeing is, it's not a matter of what's just happening with adults. It needs to start at the ground level. It's with kids.
We had an 11-year-old kill themselves here in New Zealand this week. And so the first thing we teach is making peace with the mirror. And there's 4 L's, bro. Your looks. I mean, I was bullied and teased for having acne so bad. They used to call me pizza face, and I was so skinny, they used to call me runaway skeleton. Looks. You're judged for your looks, right? Yep. Your language, what you're saying, what you're talking about. Yes. Geez, if you say the wrong thing on social media right now, bro, you get slayed, right?
Yeah.
Then your likability, which is why Facebook calls it likes.
Yeah.
And your legitimacy. And so here on social media, you have to look this way. You have to be saying these things to get this many likes to be a legitimate human being. Yeah. External validation for internal. So here in New Zealand, we're doing inner mana, generating it from the inside out. And you've seen what happens when we do a haka out there, bro, and we activate flipping culture and spirit. All that other stuff goes away.
Yep.
And I did this out at a school here in New Zealand for my New Zealand people here. Taiwai Nanga Tuto. We're our Taiohia teenagers here in New Zealand. And we were talking about what we're talking about now. We're talking about suicide and depression and cutting and anxiety and reframing it and saying, look, this is why. And kids are smart, mate. And we underestimate how smart our kids are. How does a 6-year-old know to kill herself? It's because of the chatter. How do they even know what the word is? Why do kids swear? You hear a kid swear, the first thing you think of was like, oh, someone's swearing around their kid. Yeah. Right? It's because of the narrative that's going in there. And so when I was out there with these kids, now we were talking about, we got right down to the bottom, but we know people that have killed themselves. We were right in that state of in the darkness, in the hole. And there's 50 kids there, right? And I said to them, I'm just going to acknowledge that this feels horrible down here. It's cold, it's dark, scary. For me now, the dark is actually quite peaceful. But at this particular moment in time, put your hand up if you're feeling down. All the hands go up. Put your hand up if you're feeling sad. Put your hand up if you would describe the feeling you have now as feeling depressed. Lots of hands go up. Okay, put your hand up if you think it would be you're feeling like you've got anxiety, right? Now, so I'm just using these words. I was like, someone give me some other words. And they're all looking at each other because they're using all these other words that have been attached to these feelings. And so we're right down in this low bit. And then I called out in Māori to the men, right? All the men stand up. They stood up. And I went, taringa whakarongo, kia mau hui, boom. And I challenged them and got in their face. And you don't do that to New Zealanders, bro. We spark straight up, right? And so they, boom, that spirit, that mana came out, right? And I said, how's it going? So any of you fellas feeling depressed, anxious, sad, heavy, down? They're like, nah, where did it all go then? Like that, gone. Because they access the higher value system within themselves, spirit and culture. And then when they realize that, now we can talk about this stuff. because you define these words and its effect on you. But we're allowing this to do it, which is why doing this the other way is so important. We've got to come back online and shape this to the positive. We've got to change the narrative. We've got to change the story. Change the story, change the ending, right? And so that's what we're doing. And so with the kids especially, there's two things with kids, and there's clinicians on here, so they'll be able to back this up with bigger words than I've got. But kids are having to learn to regulate emotions. Kids give you 100% of their emotion. It's like a kid drops its spoon when it's a baby, the world is ending. It just gives you all its energy, right? My daughter's 10. I just told her, she was watching this girl on YouTube this morning. I said, who's that? She goes, oh, it's this girl I'm watching on YouTube. And this girl is like spray painted makeup on her face. I'm like, what? What's she talking about? Oh, you're not watching her. She's like, why? I said, it's fake. That's not her face. And she sort of looked at me. I was like, think about it, honey. That's not her face. Why is she painted like this to come and talk about this stuff? Why can't she just come and talk about it? She's like, oh, but you have to look like that on this. Oh, do you now? She's like, oh, good point. So they throw 100% of their emotion at something, right? They haven't learned to regulate their emotion. And I'm not talking about, psychologically and everything else, just kids, right? The other thing is they don't have any filters or boundaries to put information through. Why? Because the human brain was never designed to process this much information, Rohit.
Yeah, you're right.
So the way our brain is designed is it'll only let information in that has emotion attached to it. Gaming activates all of these triggers, psychological, physiological. We got flipping serotonin getting dumped. We got adrenaline getting dumped. We just controlled this meat suit by gaming. And we're controlling people's perception of the world and themselves by what we're seeing online. It's too much info. But when there's that higher value, so when you can take them out of that, and you talk to a lot of people, a friend of mine died for 40 minutes. I had breakfast with him yesterday. He ran into him in the gym. And we're talking about a lot of this stuff because, we help people in this space. And he goes, I'll tell you what, bro. He goes, it was pretty peaceful. It was nice and quiet, And so when I started talking to a lot of people about, people that have tried to kill themselves and come back, or people that were going to have come back, is a lot of the time it's peace of mind, bro. That means it's this illusion of control. And at the moment with, stage 1 to 4 lockdowns and lockdown and not lockdown and wash your hands and don't wash your hands, it's just keeping people in the state of flux and unknown. And it's easy to control people like that, right? I'm not saying we're doing it to control people, but you just give all this emotional stimulus. And because no one's got any other way to explain what's going on, they go, mental health, really? So if it's fallen to us within the mental health space and in this lane, cool, I'll take it, but we'll reframe it. Mental health is all the good stuff. Mental health challenges, what are you challenged by? Stress and pressure, cool. Mental illness, cool. Diagnosed psychological conditions, cool. There's solutions to all of these. Let's talk about it in a solution strategy. Do not talk about it if you don't have a solution for it. If you're asking for a solution, that's different. Hi, Dion, I struggle with this, and this. I have no idea what to do. So people will Google it first, or they'll YouTube it. That's why these things are so important. If they come to us, I've got my own team of psychs and counselors and my unicorn tribe, all my healers. What's going on? This, and this. Well, what are you scared of? Cool. Man, I would be scared of that too. You're allowed to be scared. It's an emotion. And let's look at the reason why you're scared about it. Do what we can do about it. And with the 4 different characters, there's multiple solutions out there, brother.
And see, from what I'm understanding from what you're saying, and someone who's experienced this, and you've connected with a lot of people who've gone from that mental health to that suicide phase, is practical education is very important on an individual level, at all ages, in the family, in the community, in the business, by the government as well. It has to be an ongoing process.
Do we all know how to brush our teeth?
Well, yeah. And we do it every day.
We do it every day. What happens if we don't?
Yeah, well,
I mean, And I'm not trying to be flippant, not trying to devalue what you're saying. It's just a mundane thing that we do. We brush our teeth in the morning and at night if we're really good, to look after our dental
hygiene,
so that we stay healthy. We're just looking after our dental health by doing this stuff.
Yep.
And the reason why there's so much energy attached to suicide, obviously, it's a death, right? It's the loss of human life, and the stakes are high. But the process, we've made the smallest life challenge, and we've blown it out of proportion. And this is a fear of people that want to help. So I know there's people watching this going, you know what? I know people that are struggling. I don't know what to say.
Yes.
I don't know what to do. I don't want to push the big red button and think that they're suicidal or they're struggling with something. They just had an argument with their wife. And I don't want to not do something and come to work next week and find out that such and such has killed themselves.
Yep.
So if we now move the conversation away, so if you're struggling right now, there's multiple solutions. If you want to get through it, if you're in a conscious mind and you want to get through it, you need some help, reach out. There's plenty of people. Now we talk to someone on the other side that's like, Dion, I want to help. My husband, my partner, my kids are struggling with this stuff.
Yes.
What do I do? All right. First and foremost, it sounds counterintuitive. You're not there to fix anything. You are there to be there. And the best thing that you can do when you don't know what to say or do is to say exactly that. If I was talking to you, Rohit, I'd say, brother, I have no idea what to do right now, but I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to stick with you until we figure this out.
Yep.
And I'm on your shoulder, but I ain't leaving you. Yeah, you're not alone. I'll stick with you. We'll figure this stuff out. We'll Google it. We'll talk to people. You know, we'll see what's going on. Oh, find something online. Talk to this guy. We'll go down to the doctor. Talk to this side. We'll figure it out. You are important to me. Raise their value. You know, and a lot of time that takes a lot of time, a lot of patience.
Yes.
Depending on which of the four characters that they are. Just be there for them. And then if you're looking for solutions, you'll find it, but just be there for them. Kids is a hard one because as an ex-police officer, a lot of the suicides I dealt with, amazing families, tight with their parents. And what I found was a lot of the time they didn't want the people closest to them to know because they didn't want to put the burden on them. And so it's heartbreaking to be like one of your kids, you know, kills themselves, Rohit. And I know how tight you are with your kids and how tight I am with my kids. And so the advice I give to parents is you got to be really good friends with your kids' friends. Like I am the annoying dad of the year, according to my daughter, because I talk to everyone. I get to know all her friends. Hey, how you doing? Who's that one? Who's this one? Who's that one? Who's this one? Because they know if something's happening with my kids, they'll tell me. And I learned that from my mum. Man, I love my mum. My mum and I were best mates growing up. This stuff I'm not telling her. One, I don't want to embarrass her. Two, I don't put stuff on top of her. But my mates will say, hey, Mrs. J, Dion's getting pushed around at school. She's like, oh, okay then. And then one of my mates will stick up for me. So you got to be really good friends with your kids' friends. And it's man, I don't even know why this is. But sometimes the power of the third person is a heck of a lot more powerful than two people that love each other. A lot of the husband and wife stuff I've dealt with. You know, the wife's coming to me with this and the husband's coming to me with this, and it's trauma on both sides. And, you know, this is a funny one with husbands and wives, right? Wife could be telling husband something for 20 years, and then his mate goes, bro, you should try this. Oh, hey, babe, I tried this thing. She's like, I'm trying to tell you to do that for 20 years. You know?
Two different languages.
Yeah. Listen, if you think someone's struggling with something, just ask them, bro, you're not yourself. What's going on? Now, I don't like that question, are you okay? Because it's a close question. Are you okay? Yeah, bro. And if you got to trust how you feel here.
Yeah.
You know, even if you're wrong. Like if I came to you and said, hey, bro, you okay? And you go, oh, hang on a second, Dion, don't put your mental health lens on me. You know, like, oh, you know, bro, I love you. You know, I want to make sure you're okay. I'm just having a bad day. So at our network, we have a vocabulary: good day, bad day, shit day. And then the very next question is, would you like a call? Because sometimes it's just nice to know that you're aware. I can text you, Rohit, and go, bro, having a shit day. Do you want to call, bro? No, I'm good, cuz. Just letting you know. Okay, man, I'm here if you need me. Yeah. And then you know you keep an eye on me. That's all I might need at that stage. And so we've got that within our network. So here's another option for you, for people out there, is when things are good, grab the people that you're closest to. Just watch this video with Dion and Rohit. man, I never want to be the person that attends one of your funerals because I didn't know something was going on. So I'm just going to put it out there right now. I love you all. You know, I'm struggling with anything, you just flip and give me a call. If I don't know what to do, we'll figure it out together. Set that standard. So when it does kick, say, bro, I need some help. Boom, you're there, figure it out. And the other thing too is there's no rush. Everyone wants to fix things quickly. And I've spoken to a lot of people in the medical world. Man, they got 10 minutes to diagnose someone, give them a pill, get the next patient in. It's not their fault, that's the system, you know. And so we've seen a lot of recreating. We've got Health Hub project here in Palmerston North, which is the equivalent of the whole medical system run not privately, but by a whole bunch of philanthropists that are recreating the whole medical model with a human element to it. Their whole mental health team is called That's Life.
Oh,
There's
wow.
no clinical terminology in there at all. They got clinical psychs and clinical psychiatrists and psychologists and counselors. They got all that there. The language they're using is human. Because right at the start of this, I said the single most accurate predictor of success between someone struggling and someone helping is relationship.
We've got, I mean,
that person.
Yeah. Anyone on the call, does anyone have any questions for Dion, or some kind would like to express something? Please write it in the chat. We would love to see what you have to say. Anything you've got back from this, it'll be really appreciative for Dion and I to know what's going in your mind as well. So please go ahead. We have gone that 1 hour, but before we close, I'll just give them a couple of minutes to see what questions they might or what they want to share with you. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, Dion, and wants to talk to you or a member of your team, how do they do that?
The gateway for anything with me is just my website, just dionjensen.com. It's real easy. I'll chuck it in there. And email's the same, dion@dionjensen.com. Confidentiality, 100%. And if it's for you and you don't want me to know it's for you, then just say, Dion, I got a friend that's dealing with this, this, and this. What would you say? And the first thing I'm always going to do is do safety first. Is like basically, you know, where are you? Do you have access to support? Who's your support person? Because we always look for that battle buddy first.
Yep.
I do want to know, you know, do you have a doctor that you can talk to? Do you have access to that medical support first? Because it's the fastest. And if you think that anyone's going to kill themselves or attempt suicide right in the moment that you're talking, call emergency services. Now, it doesn't matter what they think about you afterwards, but and they say, I'm going to kill myself, and they're going to tell you how they're going to do it and when they're going to do it, you call emergency services and grab them. One of my closest friends, we had to do that for him, and he got grabbed against his will and taken down and all that sort of stuff. No, he thanks us now. You know? So we've got. I'd rather you be alive. I'd rather you be alive to not like me for helping you than, you know. Yeah. There's that old saying. You and I have done this with people, bro. We've said, you know, I'd rather sit through flipping 4 hours of you telling me your problems than sit through 10 minutes of your eulogy, bro.
I totally agree with you. I mean, one of the things which I always say is, you may not have the solution. Maybe the person just needs a hug, or just needs that couple of minutes or 1 hour to sit. You can give your best to give that time to them. Yeah, we're humans. We've got a question 100%. Over here from Mark.
Yeah, I mean, the time is huge. So Marshall just jumped in there to say it's been a great call, particularly interested to learn about the Asian cultural aspects of mental health. Marshall and his company do a lot of stuff in that space over this side. And, you know, my whole hashtag of globally local, everything, like, we've got a huge Asian community here in New Zealand and Australia. And all of us are everywhere now. But those cultural aspects in regards to, like, some of our cultures just have a terrible attitude towards mental health challenges. You know, and, you know, it's just when you get down to it and you get one-on-one with someone and that person understands that they are valuable to someone else first and someone loves them enough to be there, there's not too much you can't get through. And I'm coming from trauma stuff. And that's the last point I want to leave here is, you know, we are now in the PTSD space after COVID. So post-traumatic stress, we'll leave the disorder out, post-traumatic stress, after something traumatic that caused stress. So we got an alert at midnight, COVID announcement, we're getting, you know, that's triggering someone's trauma. That's the dumbest thing you could have done in this country for mental health. Sorry, Jacinta, but what were you thinking, right? So now I'm having to do a lot more stuff on post-traumatic stress because of COVID. Communication, language, relationship, you know.
So there's a question which Mark Watkins is asking, which is, what's the best way to support a coaching client as first steps if they have the flicker? You were talking about that flicker. So this is in the Q&A.
Okay, so let me have a look at that so I get the words right. What's the best way to support a coaching client as first steps if they have flicker? Okay, Mark, right. Happens a lot. To put it in context, for personal trainers, when someone goes to the gym to help them lose weight, they're not there to lose weight, right? It's what losing weight then gives them, so we know that. So whatever you're coaching them on is the first clue. When you see that flicker, if you see the flickers, you have a relationship enough that they trust you enough that that flicker showed up. Because people that are struggling with stuff, we're really, really good at hiding it. So as soon as someone has that flicker, go back and deconstruct that particular situation and what was said to find out where that match was when that flicker happened. And I know your background now. I know you'll know what it is. You'll know what direction it is. And if it's a close enough relationship where the opportunity allows itself to pop up in the next coaching session, say, hey, listen, let's, you know, most coaching sessions start with, let's revise what we went through in the last coaching session, talk through that, look for that again in that same space to see if it's there again. Because if it's there again, then that's going to be validation. But if it's not, just for your own peace of mind, because you're responsible for this person as a coach, is then ask them, hey, listen, Rohit, we did our coaching session yesterday and we're doing financial forecasting. And then, you know, at this particular bit, I got this feeling, could be wrong, that, man, are you all right with that bit? What's going on there? You sort of gave me a funny look, or I got a funny feeling. You know, if it's not funny, if you don't want to use that word, whatever your vocabulary is with each other, you know, if I think to my current coaching client now, I'm doing speaking coaching for celebrities in Australia. If it's out of sorts for them, I would just ask them, say, hey, man, I'm your coach, I'm responsible for you, I have your best interests at heart. At this particular part of the conversation, this process, something was off. Maybe that's more comfortable. Something was off, what's going on? And then when they open up about that, keep that in trust and confidence, then you then become that person's battle buddy for that bit. If you're coaching in a business sense and they're opening up about a psychological sense, then you may need to connect them to someone else, or you might just want to hold space for that person and be aware of it.
Mark, I trust that answers the question for you, because what I'm understanding from what you're saying is, Dion, it's just not about coaching about that subject. You may feel something else is happening and you need to just bring it out. You may not be the person to find the solution, but you direct them towards the right place.
Yeah. And if this is the first time that's happened to you as a coach, then incorporate that into your initial discovery conversation with your next coaching client and say, hey, listen, man, I'd love to help coach you on speaking. I'll teach you how to be a speaker and all the rest of it. Yep. Obviously, my background's in all this other stuff, and a lot of time when we're accessing emotions and that when we're talking, may unlock some stuff I don't know about. I do other things in the mental health background. Just want to let you know that if any of that stuff pops up in here, more than welcome to talk about it if it makes you feel more comfortable. It's a safe place when we're coaching for whatever we're coaching on in all aspects. If it's something I can help with, I will help. And if not, I know a lot of people I can help you with. So if you want to share it, share it. And if you don't want to share it, I understand it, but create that safe place.
Okay.
I just see here
another message.
Great model. That's Life Whānau. Tinana Hinaro, Wairoa makes you think if what you're saying isn't working to move on to another human quality. 100%. And let's go into the medical model. This is a live case example, and this person will not mind me sharing this story because it was, I laugh a lot when people in trauma come to me, and it either makes them very, very angry, which is cool, it's emotion, but I laugh a lot because they are so sure and adamant what they're saying is truth. Yeah. And that's when I laugh, because I know it's not. And so I had this wife of a military guy who's struggling with post-traumatic stress, and he's a bit of a werewolf, so he's getting angry all the time, and people are walking on eggshells. She finds me online, finds my book, shows it to her husband. Babe, you should read this. This dude was a werewolf. I don't read that stuff. So he wasn't interested. So she comes to me and goes, hey, listen, my husband's this, and this. What do I do here? So I could talk her through how she could influence that for the better. But I said, when the time is right, challenge him and say, I reckon Dion could probably help you, because that'll, werewolves like getting challenged. That'll annoy him, all right? And at some point he'll get in touch. So he did, he got in touch. He goes, Hi, Dion, apparently my wife's contacted you. Is there any chance we get on a chat? Like, yep, sweet as. So he jumps on here and he is adamant. Listen, Dion, my post-traumatic stress is so bad, my psychologist says I'm not going to be able to work for 10 years. So there's no point trying to do all this other sort of stuff and trying to get me back in the port. And I just start laughing. And of course he gets angry. He's like, it's not funny. I said, listen, I'm not laughing at you, man. I'm laughing because you are the easiest person I'm ever going to help. He's like, what? Total switch, right? I said, so you've got a psychologist that's telling you your post-traumatic stress is so bad you can't work for 10 years? That's an easy answer. He's like, what is it? I was like, find another psych. Find another psychologist that says, oh, mate, this is normal. It's this, this, and this. Here's the plan. So with what Aaron says, if you don't feel like someone's listening to you, you just don't feel it, you know, move to the next person, move to a different model. Not every model is going to resonate.
Yes.
But it's better to have a menu of 10 possible solutions than having live or die. And that's where we need to get to for Asia. And a lot of that's hidden at the moment. I'm helping with bullying, self-esteem, which is really what it comes down to. Because once you have strong self-esteem on the inside on who you are, the VIP triangle, value, identity, and purpose, for what you see in the mirror, who you see in the mirror, you're happy with how you look, what you have to say, you like you. Let's start there. And you know you're legit. Every person watching this right now has every right to a happy life on this planet. We all do. You're entitled to it. And then you build it from the inside out, which is in the mana. And look, we can beat this piece of cake. It's simple, not easy. And now look, basically that's the talk finish. If anyone wants to shoot off, you can shoot off, but we're going to keep talking. Let's go back to that question about talking up those levels. This is an individual level discussion. I'm just talking one-on-one with people. Absolutely normal. Heaps of solutions out there. If you want to get through it, touch my stuff first, and you'll find out everyone else I'm linked to. If we then go to businesses and organizations, you can jump onto my YouTube channel. There's how to lead during crisis and keep strong mental health. That's businesses. When we start going into community, that businesses are within, go into community. Then we get into culture and spirit and that side of things. It makes it even easier. Here in New Zealand, you can go see mana whenua or tangata whenua from where you are, find the leaders, talk to the tribes. At government level is linked to the medical model.
Yes.
Okay, so I mean that's not good or bad. I'm not taking a shot. I'm just saying World Health Organization into the medical model, into the government of that country. That's the establishment. That's how it works. So when we talk about trying to influence government, you are dealing with people within a certain stream. So what I've found in my experience is when you say you can do something different to how it's been done, people hear that as you're saying you can do it better, right? Which is going to make people defensive. So it makes sense to build something next to it and say, hey, man, you do some great work. But I've had a lot of people come from your model saying, listen, I resonate more with whare tapa whā, with culture, with spirit, with energy, but there's nothing over the side for that. So I see the similarities here that cognitive behavior therapy, which is a really good way of giving structure and process, is an easy fit over to here. I see your mental health first aid model as a great gateway into my VIP of mental health. I'm not competing here. I'm filling some gaps and amplifying. But to change government, you're talking about policy and everything else, is come up for your own solution, get it all together, start getting some runs on the board. And then as you start changing your entities and working with the legislation, then you can go up to the government side. Because, man, I work with some pretty high-level politicians that are not coming to me through a government or medical model. They find me online and go, hey, listen, I've got a high profile. I can't let anyone know I'm struggling with stuff. Can you help me? Yeah, of course I can.
Yeah.
Because you're a human being. You know? Whether you're a soul in a meat suit or you're just you're a ball of electricity in a meat suit run by a computer, you know, whatever.
Before we close today, any last things you would like to share with the audience out there?
You matter to someone. Like, what is inside you, your ability to do all these things in the world, is not just tokenism. The world's a big place. There's lots of other people. There's lots of people that are struggling if you're struggling. There's lots of us out here that can help. You can connect on social media. Now, don't make it a full stop. This is a chapter in the journey of life as we go through. And if you're sitting there by yourself and you feel totally alone, all the rest of it, you've got a best friend with you the whole time, and they're in the mirror. You feel alone, you sit in front of that mirror and you look yourself in the eye and you just flip and love that person for all the flaws, regardless of what you look like and everything else. Be your own best mate, and then reach out to someone else and get a battle buddy. Because once you've got a battle buddy, then there's 3 of you now. But if you don't make peace with the mirror first, you're always going to go into every battle outnumbered. And if I walk out there and I run into someone and they insult me, they're insulting 2 people. Well, with my subconscious bodyguards, you're probably insulting about 6 people. All right? It's just like, I'm happy with who I am. My wife's happy with who I am. My kids are happy with who I am. God's happy with who I am. Parents happy with who I am. Rohit's happy with who I am. My dog's happy with who I am. When you do the numbers that way and someone's in your corner, it's a real game changer. I know it's scary out there. It's scary because it's uncertain. And man, we're all just trying to do the best we know how to do. Yes. So I would like you to finish this last bit, because your message and what you stand for in your book is the most topical right now. I've got processes that can help you through it, but Rohit's energy for you in the mirror is how I would like to end this call. So Rohit, if you just share from your side what your gift is, what your advice is to people that are struggling, please.
See, one of the things, thank you for that, Dion. For me, it's not about advice, it's about suggestion, recommendations. That's always the case. What I've noticed about people, as soon as you start advising someone, they switch off. Straight away, they switch off. I have my own battles, I have my own struggles. And one of the things which strongly assists me is having self-compassion. I talk about this quite a lot, and I carry out my actions based on that. Yes, there are times where I am not showing that self-compassion towards myself or another person. So it always comes from a point of self-compassion, and people may say it's gugagi and wishy-washy. Honestly, it works. I've seen it work. I've seen it on myself. I've done it with other people as well. And it has to start with that self-compassion for yourself. And that starts with stop beating yourself. Now, it's very easy to say, stop beating yourself. At the same time, when you start questioning yourself, what is making that thought come through? Or change it around to say, I wonder how it would feel like to have some other great thoughts. You start processing in a different way. And this is where people like you, and there are other people who can assist in helping you ask those questions. I hear a lot of so-called speakers and helpers talking about taking action, taking action, taking action. The truth is, when you're in that situation, you have no clue what taking action is all about. You are so stuck. You just feel like you're sinking. So it's not about taking action. It's about giving your hand out and saying to them, I'm here, hold on to it. I'll help you out. I will take the burden to take you out the way I can do. Now, and this is, to me, is being humane. We're not talking about here, I'm talking being in business, I'm talking about being in a family or whatever. This has got nothing to do with the transactional value or what is the value or benefit that person's going to give me if I was going to save them or if I'm going to help them. You do it just because they're another living energy. They're another living being. So from my perspective, it has to, for me, my truth, it has always been, look at from a point of self-compassion, because when you start looking at it from that perspective, you start also having gratitude for the smallest, I'm talking about the smallest things in life, such as having that glass of water or just having someone who's just called you up to say, hey, what's up? Yeah, it's the smallest things we start having gratitude, and you start seeing things are far better rather than worse. And this is where it's always great to get that helping hand to support you. So that's my take on it personally.
I appreciate that, bro. And it's amazing just in the energy shift is we've got this noise, right? All this noise and pressure. And to get onto that same frequency of all this noise and pressure, we've got to come in as close to that frequency as we can and then start shifting that frequency into what we want, which is what our talk started off. All this pressure and suicide and mental health and information, basically, we have to be at the same vibration of what's distracting people to then pull their focus back here into the positive. You know, change the way that they're thinking, change the way they're feeling, get to this sort of point here. And then we're at the sort of point here, it's like, yeah, I can see all that noise and all the rest of it, but now I'm separated from it enough to be able to examine it, sort of see it. And then as soon as you speak, you're like, okay, well, that stuff's going on. And then you drop down here and just go, you just look at yourself and you're like, well, it's us that's in that.
Yeah.
You know, that's not in us unless we let it. And if we just start with us here and have compassion for ourselves and say, hey, man, we are doing the best we know how to do. We really are. Those mums are doing their best to work out there for their kids. Those dads are out there doing their best. The kids are doing their best. Everyone's doing the best they know how to do.
Yes.
So please be super kind to yourself and show yourself some compassion.
Yeah.
And then if this talk has made you think of another person, please ring them and just go, hello. I was just thinking about you, man. I don't know what's going on in your life. I love you. I miss you. Is there anything I can ever help with, brother? You know, I'm always here. I'm in your corner.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I heard someone say, or I read it somewhere, is you might not be able to help everyone, but you can help someone. So if you get the opportunity to help, serve, support someone, give it a go. Just give it a go. And you get a personal, it's something inside you. You tend to do it out of a selfless act. Nothing is selfish. It's purely a selfless act when you know you're truly helping, serving, and supporting someone. And you don't need, and the words cannot express it. Simple as that.
Exactly. And as soon as we can start seeing every other person as another piece of ourselves, and we're all connected and we're all the same, then
absolutely,
we'll get there, brother. I mean, we've come through worse stuff than this. And we can get through this if we go through it together, if we bring everyone to the table and have dialogue and safety and confidentiality and show the success stories. Let's share the positives. You know, you and I aren't even supposed to be here on this planet, brother. We're still here, you know, and we just do the best that we know how to do. And we just help the next person in front of you and start with the person in front of you in the mirror.
Very true.
Appreciate getting invited on, Rohit. Thanks very much for waiting.
Thank you, Dion. Really, truly appreciate you taking your time out from your busy schedule. I truly appreciate for everyone being on this Zoom call live and anyone who's been watching it on YouTube live. Thank you so much. For those people who are going to watch it later on, thank you for watching it. Take care, be self-compassionate, and you know where to reach out for Dion. Thank you once again, Dion. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks very much. Love you, brother. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Take care. See you, everyone. Bye. Hold on 1 minute. I think we have one question. Oh, somebody's saying thank you. Nova is saying thank you. Thank you, Nova. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Take care, everyone. Bye.